What's up, guys? Mr. Dan here, back again with another Martial Arts Monday review. This week we're reviewing the film Warriors 2, directed by Sammo Hung and starring Sammo Hung and a host of other familiar faces. Another excellent Arrow edition. Here's the slipcover. This is the alternate cover art. There's a poster, and there's as always, a very nice booklet, very informative. There's the cast and crew, which always helps, given that there are so many familiar faces in this one. And then you have an essay, A Bridge in Time by Jonathan Clements, press kit and campaign book. Take a look at some of the pictures. There's the two leads, Casanova, Wong, Sammo Hung. And there's some of the posters. The posters say things like, Kung Fu action teams with laughter, when only these two reluctant heroes can save the town. Seems like they were emphasizing the comedy elements there. Sammo Hung has a lot of pretty funny scenes in this, and there's some other characters like this guy who plays like the sort of the henchman, not one of the enforcers, but one of the sort of behind the scenes, the consigliere to the big boss, the kind of the Weasley character who acts like he wants to fight but really doesn't. So there's this film definitely has a lot more comedy than the last film I did for Martial Arts Monday, which was Hand of Death, which had a little comedy. By the way, Sammo Hung in that one had these giant buck teeth, which is a thing in these films. Somebody else gets to have the giant buck teeth. In this film, Sammo has a strange hairstyle. He's like got no hair on the top of his head. I'm not sure why. But yeah, let me just read the description of it, and then we'll talk about the cast and crew. After making his directorial debut with the intense Iron-Fisted Monk and firmly solidifying his worth at Golden Harvest, Sammo Hung would be given more creative control behind the camera. Now able to inject more of his own personality, Hung would bring to life the more upbeat, yet only slightly less violent, Wing Chun cult classic Warriors 2. Cashier Hua, played by Casanova Wong, leads a simple life working for a local bank, the only complications resulting from trying to give life advice to his friend Fat Chun, played by Hung. When Hua discovers a murderous plot to overthrow the mayor and is left for dead, Chun urges him to protect himself by learning the formidable style of Wing Chun from Master Lung San, who's played by Beardy Lung Kar Yan. As Hua's skill set grows, his proximity to Lung unknowingly lands him in the crosshairs of the treacherous scoundrels who previously sought to kill him. Predating the Ip Man films by 3 decades, as well as Hung's own Prodigal Son, which stars Yuan Biao as a younger incarnation of Lung San by a few years, Warriors 2 is one of the earliest films to authentically portray the teachings of Wing Chun, while also delivering the kind of kinetic and pulse-pounding fights synonymous with the name Sammo Hung. So in a lot of these films, the same sort of historical characters like Sun Yat-sen, Ip Man, in this case, Lung San, are often portrayed many times, sometimes dozens of times. And then when you get into the TV series that they used to have in Hong Kong, you almost can't even count. But in The Prodigal Son, Yuan Biao will play the same character. So that's interesting. So it's interesting. Yuan Biao is in this. I didn't really catch him. He's just a henchman in this, but he gets to step forward in the next film and have a starring role in the film Knockabout. And then eventually he will play the same character in The Prodigal Son. So that's very cool. So let's take a look at the cast and crew. Yep, you got Lung Kar Yan, who does not have a beard in this film, but his nickname is Beardy. He often does. The films that I've seen him in, he often plays a kind of a roguish devil-may-care character. So in this, he's got a lot more gravitas, in addition to some gray hair, which I'll get to in a moment. Then you got Casanova Wong, giving a very earnest performance as the cashier who just wants to do the right thing and then get his revenge. Lots of familiar faces. Of course, they got to do a thing where you got one actor. You got an actor named Tiger playing one character, and then another actor playing a character named Tiger, just to confuse us. Thank you. Lam Cheng Ying is a henchman, and Billy Chan, I recognized, he's a henchman. And one of them may be not what he seems, so there's a little surprise in there. The villains in this are appropriately evil and dastardly. Now, yeah, I mentioned the gray hair. The makeup, the gray hair, the scars, the one thing about these Arrow editions, they look so good. The scenery's fantastic. It really shows off the cinematography. The mountainous settings look great. I don't know that they do some of the makeup any favors, though. They really highlight a lot of it. It's not the best gray hair and makeup that you've ever seen. Having said that, it really doesn't bother me. I'm kind of accustomed to it. And actually, one of the characters, I was thinking his forehead kind of looked like a Klingon from the original Star Trek, not the full-on Mr. Worf Klingon, but one of the original ones, one of the earlier ones, not as wrinkly. But then there was a plot point where he was not who he seemed to be. So I was like, oh, well, they fooled you, Mr. Dan. There's a reason why he looks like that. There's Sammo Hung's ridiculous haircut. Yeah, so this is really an interesting film. Whereas in like Hand of Death, Sammo Hung was the fight choreographer who had to work with Dorian Tan and the rest of the cast members, Dorian Tan being a Taekwondo practitioner, and Jackie Chan, who is well skilled in many different forms, and he had to sort of create his own fight choreography for that film. In this film, the teacher is teaching Wing Chun, and he teaches the Cashier Hua character, and we the audience viewing the film are learning along with him. So it's very basic. He talks about like the different types of strikes, even the different parts of your hand that you strike with. It's really pretty interesting. Now, one of the henchmen, of course, is almost invincible. Every time you hit him, it sounds like a metal sound, like a metallic sound. So there's a couple different types of strikes that they have to use to have an effect on this guy. So that was kind of interesting. And speaking of invincible men, I recently collaborated with the Mad Bloods, with Raoul Mad Blood on the Mad Bloods channel, and we reviewed the classic film, The 18 Bronzemen. I'll put it up on the screen here on his channel. Please go check it out. We had a blast talking about that classic film. So go ahead and check that out. I love talking about these films with people who are like-minded. So yeah, this is a really good film for martial arts fans and martial arts nerds, people who really get into this stuff, Now, I haven't watched all the special features, but you got some great interviews with Lung Kar Yan, a.k.a. Beardy. Yeah, so lots of good stuff on the extras. 2 different cuts of the film. One of them's a tiny bit longer. I think the Cantonese cut, that's what I watched. And overall, great choreography. A little more comedy in this one. Sammo has some funny parts. And then it gets into the training section of the film. And even that, the way they convince the teacher to train Cashier Hua is pretty funny. They almost trick him into taking him on as a student. Sammo says, I'm going to be his master, and the teacher can't bear to watch Sammo try to teach him. And it's all like a setup, but that's pretty funny. And then it gets kind of serious. There's actually somebody gets assassinated in this, and it's pretty brutal. I mean, they really set him up bad. Like it's ingenious, and it's dastardly and mean, and it's a good scene. Really good choreography. Again, lots of fighting in inns, INN. Much like the saloons of the Old West. That's where a lot of the action takes place. But the comedy does sort of come back at the end. I was a little surprised by that it kind of returned at the end. But I didn't really mind. It's just good film overall. Great action. Some really brutal scenes, fight scenes. There's one that just got me, like where somebody takes their leg and they sort of kick down the shin of somebody. They split open the pants and just bloody the guy's whole shin. And just the thought of that, it's not the most violent thing in the movie, but it just made my skin crawl. Some more good weapons in this. Not as many. It's not a weapon heavy film, I would say. A lot of it's just barehanded Wing Chun action. But yeah, really good. I don't really know what else to say about it. Definitely check it out. Great cast. And let me know what you guys want me to review next. I could do Knockabout, or I could do The Prodigal Son. Eventually, I want to do Last Hurrah for Chivalry by John Woo. So let me know in the comments below. Come back again next Monday for Martial Arts Monday. I'll be doing, of course, on Fridays, I show my physical media editions and parts of my collection, so you may see some martial arts films in there. And during the week, I usually try to throw in a horror review or two. Speaking of that, eventually I want to kind of combine the two and do some of the kung fu horror mashup films. And there's a lot more than you think there are. Speaking of Lam Ching Ying, who was in this film, he was known as Mr. Vampire for making a lot of those films. But we'll get to that. I think I'm going to try to set that up for October, so I'm going to start planning that well ahead of time. All right, guys, let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts of this film? What would you like me to review next? And I'll check you next time. Thanks.